the San Diego County Sheriff's Department recently released a video claiming that one of their deputies had suffered from a fentanyl overdose simply by being in close contact with the drug. Now, he didn't consume the drug. He didn't, I don't know how you consume fentanyl, I gotta be honest with you.
Well, there's 3 ways. The best would be, I don't know.
But the point is, during his policing duties, he came into contact with it, and then he suffered. He had an overdose, and it was a scary experience. Let's take a look at that video, and then I'll tell you what actual professionals and health experts had to say about it.
It's okay, just focus on your breathing, okay? Focus on it. I need Narcan! I'm Corporal Scott Crane from the San Diego County Sheriff's Department. My trainee was exposed to fentanyl and nearly died. It was our first radio call of the day, and this was Deputy Five Eyes' radio call. He found a white substance that he suspected was drugs.
Yeah, it's a powder.
Could be cocaine or fentanyl.
It tested positive for fentanyl. This stuff's no joke, dude. It's super dangerous. I was like, hey, dude, too close. You can't get that close to it. A couple seconds later, he took some steps back and he collapsed. I ran over to him and I grabbed him, and he was ODing. And I went to my trunk, grabbed the Narcan, came down to him, grabbed him, and I did one nasal spray in one nostril, opened the other one, another nasal spray in the other one.
I need Narcan!
I got you, I got you. I'm trying to not let him go. Like I wanted him to know he wasn't alone. It's an invisible killer. He would have died in that parking lot if he was alone. Fire department got there, put him on the gurney. His eyes rolled back in his head, and he started to OD again. And he was ODing the whole way to the hospital.
I don't think people realize the severity of just how deadly it really is. I'm Deputy David Five Eye, and I almost died of fentanyl overdose.
So there are health experts who have weighed in on this, and they're like, no, that's not what happened. Which is why listen, I don't know what happened to that deputy, okay? It seems like he experienced something, and I don't want to minimize what he was experiencing, although I will say that it is highly, highly unlikely that he overdosed from fentanyl. So, John, before I give you the thoughts of actual medical professionals, why don't you jump in?
Me being very much not a medical professional, although I'll point out I have watched every episode of House several times. I feel the same way as you. While the most likely explanation seems to be that this is just elaborate propaganda or whatever.
Why?
I'm a soft-hearted lefty, so when I see someone like shaking on the ground, I feel bad, and we feel this stupid knee-jerk need to consider all options, add the nuance, try to like all that. There's no benefit of it or whatever. But so maybe it's what they said it is. But I mean, the whole thing looked a little bit convenient. Look, some of it is in post, that like swelling natural music of the whole thing, the spa music.
Sail away, sail away,
exactly.
Sail away.
So, okay, that's in post. But like, as Craig was pointing out, they got every shot they needed. And since when does a body cam do portrait mode? Come on, it was a little bit convenient with the cinematography. The whole thing just seemed so staged.
What I'm trying to figure out is I do think, look, if I had to bet my money on it, and this is me speculating, I speculate that this is nonsense and he did not.
Maybe he thinks he did, in which case I feel bad for him.
And there's a possibility that he genuinely thinks he did. And I'll get to that in a second, because there's an actual medical term for that. But what I was trying to say is, if I had to bet money, I would bet money that it was not a fentanyl overdose and it was meant for propaganda purposes, but why? Like, what is that propaganda supposed to do?
Terrifies you of drugs. It makes you feel really bad for the cops.
That's a good point.
And the cops who are investigating the drug stuff, you will come to think of it not as them being like the strong arm of the government in selectively enforcing drug laws in certain areas and not others, on certain drugs and not others. And it's this multi-decade thing of, like basically racial animus weaponized into a drug war. No, instead, they are going into danger, into war. At any point, they could OD, even accidentally. So you'll feel bad for them rather than question why we're doing this in the first place.
I mean, look, if they get the vapors from just being in the same vicinity of fentanyl, I can kind of understand why they're so quick, they're so trigger happy and quick to like shoot their guns at like any perceived threat. But anyway, who cares what we think? Okay, let's actually hear from people who know what they're talking about. Medical professionals have pushed back, saying there's no evidence that incidental contact, drugs coming in contact with skin or through inhalation with fentanyl can trigger an overdose. A couple hundred signed an online petition calling for retraction of the video and the news coverage that focused on it. Sheriff Bill Gore, though, said that he is not a doctor, but he determined that the deputy did in fact suffer from an overdose. So here's Sheriff Bill Gore saying, I saw the video. Everybody saw the video, saw him seize up, go down, fall on his head. The drugs tested for fentanyl. It was classic signs of fentanyl overdose. That's why we called it that.
That doesn't prove what he says it proves, though.
It, in fact, does not. You're right. And well, what could have happened, right? So if you want to interpret all of this in a generous way, if you want to give the police the benefit of the doubt, there is something known as the nocebo, which is different from a placebo. A nocebo effect could explain what's going on in this incident, said Dr. Ryan Marino, medical director of toxicology at the University Hospitals of Cleveland. I can say from watching that video, he is not having an overdose. So what is a nocebo? So it's an incident where an officer believes that a substance could harm him and imagined the whole feeling or effect of that drug, right? So a placebo is when you think a drug is working in a positive way. Nocebo is something that you came into contact with, the drug that you came into contact with or consumed affected you in a negative way, right?
So it's entirely possible. It is possible that he has internalized the same sort of fear mongering about it that they are trying to do in that video, and thus you react the way you think that you're supposed to. I remember as a very young guy, my friend and I found a bottle of, I think it was, I don't remember exactly what it was, but we drank the whole thing. We acted all goofy and we were all drunk. It was non-alcoholic, but we thought that it was. Now that would be a placebo because we actually did consume the thing, but we thought we were supposed to act away. Turns out it's just as fun. So now I wish I could still do that. Unfortunately, I can't. I have to use the real thing and I do heavily, but that's possible. And again, that doesn't mean that we can't have empathy for him, although using the term the vapor sort of sends that out the window. But I do feel empathy for him. I just don't, once you turn it into propaganda and release it out there to provide an effect, regardless of what he may have felt or not felt, the effect of this video is obviously negative.
Exactly, yeah, no, absolutely. And look, if this is so, it's illustrative of a common issue we have in America, not just with cops, but like our mindset on most things. We see problems, and instead of focusing on the root causes of the problem, we think about what band-aids we can use. Like, I don't know what band-aid this police department wants to put on the very real problem of opioid overdoses, fentanyl overdoses. That hasn't gone away, guys. Like that has only gotten worse during the pandemic, and it is a serious problem. These are deaths of despair. And so rather than addressing what leads to these deaths of despair, whether it be the awful economic conditions that people live in, whether it be overprescribing opioids, like those are the things that should be talked about and addressed. Putting out the fear-mongering videos, you're right. I mean, it doesn't help in any way. It only further stigmatizes people. You think people make that decision? You think people who are in the right state of mind are like, yeah, man, I want to use fentanyl. Like people think it's a lifestyle choice? Come on. So I certainly have a problem with that. Like what the main purpose of that video was. And let's please listen to the health experts. I know, like, there's a weird pushback against medical professionals these days, but I guarantee you they know more than we do. And I'm pretty sure he didn't die, or he didn't nearly die of an overdose there.